I want to welcome you to Raven Chronicles' inaugural podcast of Raven Talks, which is going to be a series we have like once a month. I'm Phoebe Boucher, the managing editor of Raven Chronicles, which is a Shoreline, Seattle-based independent press and literary organization. We'd like to thank the many sponsors of this and other Raven events: For Culture of King County, the City of Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture, and the Washington State Arts Commission with NEA funding for project support. We acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish Peoples, and that we occupy this land. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with the indigenous communities who are very much still here, but serves as the first step in honoring the land we occupy and as an act of resistance against the erasure of their histories. Our engineer today is Tom Stiles. Tom, do you want to make a comment to anyone about muting or audio muting today?
Oh, I'd just say that it's nice to see people. I think for presenters, if you can see, but unless you're actually speaking, it's probably best to keep your microphone muted until you're ready to ask a question. And you can also put questions in the chat, and then Phoebe can bring them up, or Kathleen can bring them up later on. Phoebe, do you want to start streaming on Facebook now?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to start it right now.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Did you introduce me, Phoebe?
I'm going to right now. I just was doing this Facebook thing. Okay, Kathleen Alcalá was born in Compton, California, to Mexican parents, and grew up in San Bernardino. She has a BA in linguistics from Stanford University, an MA in creative writing from the University of Washington, and an MFA from the University of New Orleans. Both a graduate of and instructor in the Clarion West science fiction and fantasy. Was a graduate of and instructor in the Clarion West science fiction. Sorry about that. Her work embraces traditional and innovative storytelling techniques. She is the author of 6 award-winning books that include a collection of stories, 3 novels, a book of essays, and recently, The Deepest Roots: Finding Food and Community on a Pacific Northwest Island from the University of Washington Press. This year, Raven Chronicles published her novel, Spirits of the Ordinary, A Tale of Casas Grandes. Kathleen.
Thank you, Phoebe, and thank you for having us as the inaugural program for Raven Chronicles Press podcast. I'm going to be speaking primarily in English, and Cristina Ochimachi will be speaking primarily in Spanish, and Dani will be translating between us. So let me start by introducing Dani Ahuicapahtzin Cornejo Warner, descendant of the Teguima Ópata people from the pueblo of Oposura, renamed Montezuma, in Sonora, Mexico on his mother's side, and a descendant of the Pinguche people from the pueblo of Lolol in the region of Colchagua, Chile on his father's side. Both nations experienced an intense combination of missionization, assimilation, enslavement, and erasure, so that current-day descendants mostly identify with the Mexican and Chilean nation state. As a result, Dani is immersed in a cultural and reclamation effort as a member of the Youth Council of the Ópata Nation. Dani has been an educator since 2004, obtained his MA in Ethnic Studies from San Francisco State University in 2010, and is currently completing his PhD in Native American Studies at UC Davis. His PhD work is focused on indigenous holistic pedagogies in the service of urban Native people. He currently lives in East Oakland, California with his wife and children. Isabel Cristina Murrieta López was born in Nácori Chico, Sonora, Mexico, and is Ópata by origin and by inclination. She left her home to work during high school and became a public health specialist. As a professional, She joined the IMS and the IMSS Workers Union, Section 8, followed by constant union work in support of the rights of women and Indigenous people. Excuse me. She presented the first legislative proposal to professionalize nursing with the support of the National and State College of Nurses. She's widely recognized for her work in organizing and defending Indigenous people. Cristina is now the cultural director and official chronicler of Nácori Chico, where she supports poets and promotes local culture. Her priority is oral tradition and rescuing the historical legacy of the Sierra Madre de Sonora. She's also part of the Universal Circle of Ambassadors for Peace, based in Geneva, Switzerland, and Paris, France. As a cultural promoter, she founded and coordinates the cultural group Ahuicapahtzin, Divine Voice in the Ópata language, dedicated to the rescue, conservation, and dissemination of customs, language, music, dances, and other identity elements of the Ópata ethnic group. Thank you to both of you for being here today. I forgot to say I'm coming to you from Suquamish territory. Dani, would you like to just briefly translate into Spanish what about you and Cristina, what we just said?
It's going to be tough to translate all of that, pero esencialmente Kathleen leyó nuestras biografías y nos introdució.
Okay, Phoebe, would you put up the first slide of the map?
Okay.
Who are we? We're going to talk about who are the Ópata. Here's one map that shows how we are oriented to the tribes around us in northern Mexico. Actually, Ópata territory traditionally extends farther north into the river valleys of the Sonora Desert that ended up on the north side of this artificial boundary between the United States and Mexico. Let's see. Our neighbors include the Tohono O'odham, the Upper and Lower Pima, the Yaqui, the Mayo, and the Seri or Comcaac to our west there along the shore. Let's see, I'm getting a little help here from somebody. Oh, Edgar is posting some links that you can look up if you want to find out more about this. And we do have a website with all of this information on it. So at our height, there were probably 60,000 members of the Ópata Nation. Once the settlers came, much of the land that they owned or worked was taken by people who have a very different concept of land management and ownership. And the Ópata were often killed for their land because it was the good land. It was the land along the river bottoms. And so this did not suit people who'd come from overseas to find land. And so they took it from us. Let's go to the next slide here, which is, let's see, of people. Who are we?
You see that? No?
No.
Okay, just a minute. Let's do another share. So, okay, here we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, Kathleen. Oh.
Okay.
Technical difficulties here. Can you see that?
All right, there we are. We need to, there we go. So who are we? Here are photos that we have been sending in over the years to be on our website, and you'll recognize me there. You'll recognize some other people. Let's see, there's Kiki Felix, and I don't know, Edgar can probably identify more of these people than I can. Today in the modern times, we're teachers and we're artists, and we work in tech and we do all the things that other people do. I would say that besides the villages in northern Mexico, in the Sonora, that the majority of people of Ópata descent probably live in California and in the Los Angeles area. And I'm basing that basically on the participants of our Facebook group. It seems to me that many are from that area. So who qualifies to be Ópata? Well, anyone who can show that they are of Ópata descent can be a member of the Ópata Nation. We don't use the United States government qualification of blood quantum at all. So if you want to get in touch with one of us and talk about that, you might also, again, look at our website, because many of the surnames of Ópata descendants are listed there. So if you or one of your ancestors has one of those last names, you're probably one of us. We have some famous people, at least to us, in our background. If you look in the upper right corner, second over to the left, that's Gustavo Gutierrez, who was a famous labor organizer and activist who took part in many of the peace and social justice walks, marches that have taken place across the country. And he spoke many times in public on behalf of workers' rights. He passed away maybe 5 years ago, we're sorry to say. And then go ahead to the next slide, Phoebe.
Recording in progress.
Probably can't see that yet, right? Here we go.
Here we are. This is Teresa Leal. And she ran a small museum, the Upper Pimeria Museum in Nogales, Mexico, for many years. And I met her at the museum the one time and took this photo of her. She died rather tragically about 3 months after this. Apparently she had a heart attack and died. So we'll miss her. She was also a workers' rights advocate, as is Cristina today. But Teresa was certainly one of our leaders during the time that she was with us. Today, many people are working on this effort to revive and claim the language. Teresa was one of the people who was good at claiming the language and showing it to people and trying to teach children at least a little bit of the language. We're also working on reclaiming the language, the land, and the customs associated with it. As with all volunteer efforts, people step forward for a couple of years, then back as circumstances allow. Let Dani jump in here.
Sí, la Kathleen habló de un poco de la opataría, de las naciones que están a nuestro alrededor, de nuestro terreno ancestral que extendía hacia el norte a través de los valles. Habló del terreno fértil que es nuestro territorio, y por eso era tan, llegaron tantos colonizadores y misionarios a nuestro territorio por esa razón. También habló de miembros ópatas como Gustavo Gutiérrez y Teresa Leal. Habló de nuestra comunidad como diáspora, el trabajo que hacemos en términos de justicia social, justicia laboral, derechos para pueblos indígenas, etc. Y ese es un resumen, más o menos. pause there.
Thank you. As with all volunteer efforts, people step forward for a couple of years, then back as circumstances allow. Go ahead, Dani.
Los miembros van hacia el frente para hacer trabajo por algunos años y después se retiran debido a lo que dejan sus circunstancias de vida.
I would like to acknowledge Nicole Yanes and Edgar Garcia Rojas in particular for the many hours spent on this work, and many other people as well.
Nicole Yanes y Edgar Rojas han hecho harto trabajo en términos de la reclamación cultural y lingüística y muchos otros también.
So it's with great pleasure that I turn to Cristina. She also goes by Okimaki is her Ópata name, and talk to her about her current work.
Y ahora con un placer grande abro la palabra para Cristina Kimachi, que nos va a hablar sobre su trabajo.
Tell me, Cristina, about your current work as the official storyteller of Nácori Chico.
Cristina, ¿nos puedes contar sobre su trabajo como la historiadora oficial de Nácori Chico? Y estás en mute, entonces.
Antes de iniciar, pues buenas tardes, un saludo cordial a todos los noraguas, parientes, ópatas y no ópatas, a quienes nos escuchan en Facebook. Y les saludo desde Nácori Chico, que significa lugar entre nopales. Está ubicado al este del estado de Sonora, en la Sierra Alta. Es un pueblo pequeño y tiene 5 comunidades, entre ellas la comunidad del Sabusi Buenavista, donde con los ópatas, que actualmente han adquirido el compromiso de caminar junto con nosotros, con nosotras. Mi trabajo como cronista
Dani, ¿puedes
se inicia
traducir?
hace...
Con permiso, Cristina, vamos a hacer pausas para que pueda traducir, si está bien.
Okay.
Entonces, so Cristina says, before I get started, I just want to say good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I want to greet both native and non-native peoples who have taken the time to be here. I'm from Nácori Chico, which means the place within the nopal cactus, the nopal cactuses. In this region, there are 5 central communities, including Sabusi and Buenavista. And it's within these communities that we are doing intensive reclamation work with the Ópata Nation. Cristina? Sí,
Ok. Antes quiero seguir también, quiero comentar que mi trabajo está muy coordinado con Edgar García Rosas, a quien agradezco mucho su apoyo junto con Nicole Yanes y Kathleen Alcalá. Muchas gracias. El trabajo que estamos haciendo con la comunidad de Buenavista implica hacerlo también en coordinación con el trabajo que estamos haciendo como cronistas, que se inició desde el 2005 en relación a la crónica. El trabajo con la opatería lo hemos hecho.
Disculpe. Entonces, so she wanted to thank those who are supporting her work, including Edgar Garcia Rojas and Nicole Yanes. Rosas, disculpe, sorry. Also, within Buenavista, they are working to chronicle, they're working as chronicalists of reclamation.
Bien, Cristina, puedes hablar.
No, ok. Quiero comentar que el trabajo que hemos estado haciendo como ópata, porque yo desde pequeña he enfatizado que soy ópata, que mi sangre es ópata, que mi origen es ópata y que mi corazón es ópata. Desde pequeña he enfatizado mi identidad como ópata en cualquier lugar que me presento. Soy mexicana, soy mujer, soy indígena, ópata, y de ahí la representación que juego en cualquier momento, el rol que me toca desarrollar. Como diputada hice defensa de la opatería, igual que de los hermanos yaquis, de los tojono y de los mayos. Sin embargo, he estado coordinándome también con los cronistas de los diferentes pueblos de la sierra, aun cuando no sean ópatas.
Okay,
El trabajo prioritario.
puedes,
Okay.
Perdón. So
Sí,
since
está
I
bien.
was young, I emphasized my opataness. I emphasized my identity as an opata woman. I am both Mexican, I am woman, and I am indigenous. And in identifying that way, I also identify with the defense and the protection of the territory and place where we come from. Not just the Ópata Nation, but also in coordination with our brothers and sisters from the Yaqui people, the Tohono O'odham, and the Mayo people, who also, like myself, have chroniclists and historians who are doing similar work. So we are in continual dialogue with other nations.
Thank you. Much of your previous work, Cristina, Dani, can you translate?
Yeah, mucho de su trabajo previo, Cristina,
Was for workers' rights and the rights of indigenous people.
ha sido para los derechos de trabajadores y los derechos de gente indígena, de pueblos indígenas.
How is that reflected in your current work?
Así es, también de los derechos de las mujeres y los niños. Fui diputada en la legislatura 94-97 y prioricé mi trabajo en ese sentido. Como política lo he hecho siempre, como sindicalista también, y especialmente como mujer y como indígena, ópata.
Yeah, so she says
Tengo viviendo en Nácori.
Tienes que esperar para Dani.
Want an answer? No, if you want an answer, what I have done.
Yes, so she said
I had
her work in defense of workers and indigenous people, her work as a union organizer, her work as a legislator has always involved the protection of women and children as well.
Okay.
Okay. Sí.
Gracias, Cristina. Entonces,
solamente me gustaría agregar que en el trabajo actual combino mi trabajo como cronista con las actividades como agente de cambio de NDN, el trabajo directo con las comunidades indígenas de la sierra, especialmente Buenavista, y en la que tengo acá atrás de mí parte de su trabajo artesanal de palma, todavía trabajan en los jukis, también con las conservas, el manejo de los alimentos, las plantas medicinales y diferentes actividades que siguen manejándose con técnicas ancestrales. Eso es lo que fortalece y nos da una riqueza cultural e histórica que nos da identidad a los ópatas de la Sierra Alta.
So I would like to add that my chronicling work is also in collaboration with the NDN Collective based in the United States of America. And we're doing work with the peoples of the Sierra Madre mountain range, doing things like preserving and learning the ways that our people work with palm, the medicinal plants that we preserve, doing conserves in the jars, and she pointed to the jars back there. And all of these tactics are done using the ancestral methods of our people.
Thank you. Gracias, Cristina. Now I'm going to talk to Dani a little bit about his work with language, con la lenguaje ópata.
Ahora me voy a hablar a mí un poco.
Sí. Dani, you're in graduate school finishing your PhD.
Ujú.
Go ahead and translate that.
Dani, estás en escuela de graduado, terminando tu doctorado.
You've done a lot of work with the Ópata language.
Has hecho mucho trabajo con la lengua ópata.
We have at least 2 linguists affiliated with the University of Arizona working with us.
Tenemos por lo menos 2 lingüistas afiliados con la Universidad de Arizona que están trabajando con nosotros.
¿Y cómo se llaman otra vez?
Se llama Christian Revuelcagua y Michael Everdell también, que está trabajando
Rubalcaba.
Sí.
en UT Austin, parece.
Sí, los dos. The 2 have been working with us for several years.
Ujú.
Many people claim at least one of the 3 dialects of Ópata as their own.
Mucho gente ópata viene normalmente de uno de 3 dialectos, Teudebe, Teguima o Jova,
But few of us can really speak it at this point.
pero muy pocos de nosotros podemos hablar el idioma.
Can you tell us about that?
¿Nos puedes contar un poco de eso? So, first and foremost, yo si mi nobe no tegua ba'gikia, teriraguada o posurawa, doeme teguima. My name is Dani Ahuicapahtzin Cornejo. I introduce myself in my maternal language of the Teguima Ópata. I am broadcasting from occupied and unceded Chochenyo Ohlone territory. Me introducí en Ópata y estoy hablando de territorio Ohlone en California. My work with the Ópata language has been simultaneously beautiful and painful. Mi trabajo con la lengua ópata ha sido simultáneamente bello y doloroso. The reason for that is, as Indigenous people, when we engage with the linguistic archive, there are aspects of that archive that are haunted. La razón por eso es que, como gente indígena, cuando estudiamos en términos de archivos, hay partes de esos archivos que están con fantasmas, digamos. One of the primary, haunted, yeah. One of the primary linguistic sources that we have is a grammar called, what is it called? It's like the grammar of the lengua teguima, vulgarmente conocido como Ópata, by a missionary named Natal Lombardo. Entonces le hablé sobre la gramática de Natal Lombardo. Now this grammar was created in mid-1600s, right at the point of contact with the Ópata Nation, or around the beginning. Esta gramática fue creada durante el punto de contacto en como el siglo XVI, por ahí. And so, when you engage with this grammar, you're engaging with a missionary colonizer mentality of that time. For example, you'll read sentences that say, pick that corn or I will whip you. Have you gone to church today? And so you find yourself in a position where the language is incredibly valuable. And at the same time, it's a language rooted in a colonial project. This grammar was utilized to colonize our people. So, le estoy hablando de la dificultad de usar la gramática de Lombardo porque él habla de esclavitud de nuestra gente en esa gramática, él habla de la misionización de nuestra gente en esa gramática, y las palabras son valiosas, pero la historia, que es parte de esa gramática, es dolorosa. And so it's difficult, and it's been painful for me to engage with that grammar, but simultaneously we have to, because it has, you know, lists of numbers, lists of animals, lists of plants. It has, you know, how to introduce yourself. It has grammatical rules and on and on and on and on. So,
and I have to say that years before I discovered the rest of you, I was told that place names in Arizona were in the Ópata language, and many names for the plants and herbs are in the Ópata language because of our relationship with the land.
absolutely.
So it's a very valuable language.
Absolutely. So, you know, Nácori Chico, Oposura, which is currently Montezuma, Opodepe, these are all Ópata names of places that remain in Sonora to this day. And, you know, plant names as well. It said that the saguaro name comes from, the saguaro cactus comes from the Ópata language, and even the name Sonora, it's debated whether it comes from the term sonori, which is the Eudeve term for corn, or Shu'unu'uta, which is the Teguima term for corn. Both have
I didn't know that.
to, so it's a lot to translate both languages. Did I answer the question? I hope I answered the question.
You're doing a great job, Danny.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, in terms of language acquisition, I've been reading a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, Una trenza de hierba sagrada by Robin Wall Kimmer, who's an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation in upstate New York, in el noreste de los Estados Unidos. She's a biologist who teaches at the college level, and the book is a series of essays linking people to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and translate that part.
Entonces, Kathleen está hablando de un libro que se llama Una trenza de hierba sagrada por una doctora y bióloga indígena, en que ella que está situado ahí por el territorio de Nueva York. Y en esta serie, ella, usando el análisis biológico y indígena, está conectando a la gente con su tierra.
Sí. In one essay, she talks about how tribal members all have labels stuck to everything in their houses with the name of the object in Potawatomi.
Yeah. En uno de los capítulos, ella está hablando de cómo los miembros de su nación, para aprender la lengua, tienen palabritas que están conectadas a las diferentes partes de su casa, asiento, o sea, ventana, lo que sea, para ir aprendiendo y normalizando el trabajo de aprender lenguas.
So I know that you invented a game for learning Ópata to use with your children. So how's it going?
Yeah. Entonces ella quiere que yo hable del juego que diseñé para mis hijos. It's going really well. You know, my children love the game.
Excellent.
They ask me to play it all the time. It's fun, and it's actually easier if I show it to you.
Yes, please do.
The draft of the game board. So a few things that, este es un borrador del juego. A few things that I want to point out. As you can see, the game board is oriented, so east is up. La orientación del juego es el este para arriba. The reason that I do this is based on the work of Dr. Jack Forbes and Dr. Halea Sinajani, who both taught at UC Davis, but they studied epistemologies from a hemispheric perspective. And because of natural law, because of the fact that the sun rises in the east, throughout the hemisphere, you have maps that are situated east up, as opposed to north up, what we are more accustomed to seeing. This is important because if you turn a map to the east, it fundamentally alters your worldview. All of a sudden, the Americas are connected across the entire world, and the world is actually nearly connected. Entonces, estaba hablando de la orientación hacia el este, ayuda que está basado en ley natural de pueblos indígenas por todo el hemisferio. Now, you have place names, as Kathleen mentioned, that are in Ópata. Most of these still exist, so these place names, Nacosari, Oposura, Butuk, Opodepe, Ures, etc. They all have stories and histories behind them. Entonces, tengo los nombres de lugares que tienen cuentos y historias detrás de ellas. If you notice, there's colors. The game pieces are colors, so we roll a little die, and my children have to count in Ópata to get to, so count the numbers, Se, Gode, Naide, Nago, Mariki. They count in Ópata to get to the place, and then when they get there, they need to name the color. So there's actually an accompanying book that has colors and numbers with this.
Great.
Le estoy hablando que tiramos un die, uno de estos, y los niños tienen que contar los números en Ópata y después el color que llegan tienen que hablar, tienen que decir el nombre del color en Ópata. Okay. The one that stands out to me is Temosai, gray, for instance. You'll also see there's images of sonori or shu'unut or corn there, and there's images of an eagle there. When the children land on corn, then they get to pull from the card full of different plants from the region. So we have everything from the saguaro to the mesquite plant and others of the region, and there's a story behind them. Estoy hablando de que cuando llegan y pegan sobre el maíz, tengo cartas que van con el juego y y pueden aprender de las plantas de la zona, como el mezquite, como el saguaro, etc. And then the same goes for the animals of the region. So when they land on the animal card, they'll learn about, the Cotamundi. They'll learn about the jaguars that were historically in our territory, the wolves or teonas that were historically in our territory, etc. Entonces, también tiene que ver con los animales cuando pegan ahí. En los lugares de animales tengo cartas con animales y pueden aprender de los jaguares que estaban en nuestro territorio, los lobos que estaban en nuestro territorio, hasta los loros que estaban en nuestro territorio. And so there's teachings behind every aspect of this game. Hay enseñanzas detrás de cada aspecto de este juego. And it's a really beautiful way for us being in a diasporic community to continue to connect to our homeland and our language despite not being there. Es una manera de cómo nosotros como diáspora podemos continuar a conectar a nuestro territorio ancestral sin estar ahí, nuestra lengua sin estar ahí. So, here's a few of the cards. So you have mago, which is the plant that was used for poison arrows historically. You have huitepa, which is mesquite. You have chini, which is a form of cotton that's present in Sonora and used in textiles. So there's stories behind all of these. And so when they pull the card, you tell the story, and eventually they tell the story. Entonces, hay cuentos detrás de cada uno de estas plantas, que sea tacu, palma, que sea opo, ironwood, whatever it is. So plants, you have objects like gipe, mata, it's full of vocabulary. Animals, so teona, osera, naidogua, etc., itaka. And then these are the cards for runners. This is part of the game that I'm not going to explain right now but anyways.
That's great.
as you can see, it's a very rich game for vocabulary and learning and oral history and everything like that. Entonces, estaba comentando que cada parte del juego tiene enseñanzas, tiene vocabulario en nuestro idioma y nos ayuda a aprender poco a poco.
Gracias, Dani. Muy interesante. And there's still that one jaguar out there. ¿Cómo se llama en Ópata?
Se llama Naidogwa.
Naidogwa.
It's one of the ways of saying it. That's the Teguima way from what I understand.
Okay. Entonces, Cristina, ¿sí puedes hablar poquitito del Ópata? ¿Sí? ¿Puedes decirnos un cuento en Ópata?
Estás en mute, Cristina.
I'm asking Cristina if she can tell us a story in Ópata. No podemos entender. ¿Tienes tu micrófono?
Ok.
Ahí.
Okay.
Sí, comentaba que sí tengo las historias ópatas, pero no manejo el vocabulario ópata. Estoy en el trance de aprender. Conozco el léxico, conozco palabras sueltas, sobre todo lo que son los lugares, plantas, pero para hacer una historia me es imposible. Pero te puedo hablar, por ejemplo, de Corazón de Piedra. Es un cuento ópata en el que la hija del jefe ópata se enamoró de
Perdona,
un
¿puedes
mancebo
pausar un
de otro pueblo.
Tienes que
Antes que-
dar a Dani un tiempo.
Yeah, so she said, Cristina says she has stories about our people, but she does not speak the language. She speaks words here, words there. She's in the process of learning the language, but the stories behind the language, such as a story about the heart of stone, is one that she can share. Entonces, si quieres,
Ok, si quieres,
pues,
puedes hablar de
Ok.
ese.
El corazón de piedra existe, ¿sí?
ujú.
Está
Sí,
en un aguaje, en un nacimiento de agua, ¿no? Y se habla que los Hoiraguá, que es la única palabra en que se conocen a los ópatas originarios, vivían en la ciudad de Oera, o en la ciudad del principio. Y cerca del lugar de los nopales, es decir, de Nácori Chico, había un arroyuelo en donde nacía un pequeño, o más bien había un pequeño nacimiento de agua. Ahí
ok,
se veían, lo
tienes
voy
que,
a
tienes
cortar,
que
¿ok?
dar Dani un tiempo.
Okay. So the story about the heart of stone is that the heart of stone is located in a small body of water in one of the places of origin of the Goy Aguar people, which is an ancestral name for our people, which is close to the village of Nácori Chico. Puedes continuar, Cristina.
Sí. Oquiséhuatl, que era la mujer flor, Oquiséhuatl, Oqui, mujer, Séhuatl, flor. Era la hija del jefe y estaba destinada para casarse con Taizani, el hijo del sol. Era un guerrero gigante, muy querido por su pueblo. Pero
Ok,
ella se enamoró de un mancebo que no era de ese lugar.
tienes que dar Dani un tiempo.
Yeah, so Oquiséhuatl, which
Es
translates
tiempo.
to the woman of the flower. Oki means woman, Séhuatl is flower. Was in love with, or she was the daughter of the chief, and she was in love with an individual named Daisani, which translates to child of the sun.
Gracias.
Mhm.
Poquito
Dice
más.
que todos los días, por la tarde, al caer el sol, ellos se iban a Moronibabi, al ojo de agua, y ahí se veían. Pero había un guerrero extraño que quería a la princesa y un día los esperó. Voy a cortar todo, ¿ok? Los esperó y golpeó al guerrero Taisani,
Okay.
lo mató. Y ella, que adoraba a su novio metido, le pidió al sol, al papá sol, que la convirtiera en algo que la uniera definitivamente con su prometido.
Okay.
Okay.
Y
Entonces,
así fue que...
No, tienes que, Dani tiene que hablar.
okay.
Sí.
Disculpe, porque no quiero.
No, se me olvida.
Okay. So every day, when the sun set around the place of Moribavi, Okisewa, the women of flowers, and Taisani, child of the sun, would go to the body of water called Moribavi. There was a warrior that was jealous of Okisewat and Taisani's relationship, and he hid by the body of water waiting for Taisani because he wanted to take Okisewat for himself. And that warrior killed Taisani. Now, Okisewat asked Taisani's, asked the sun that they be connected forever. Puedes continuar, Cristina.
Okay. Ella le gritaba al dios Tayo, Patayo, también le decían los ópatas al sol, era el espíritu más grande. Le pidió que la mandara con él. Entonces el dios Tayo envió nubes, había un ruido tremendo con rayos y todo, y empezó a burbujear el agua que nacía, que salía de ese nacimiento. Ella se desmayó y falleció, pero su espíritu sabía que era ella cuando se vio corriendo, convertida en la flor del tabachín, que es la flor sagrada de los ópatas. Y
Sí.
la corola del tabachín caía sobre...
Gracias, gracias.
Gracias. So, after Taisani was killed, she pleaded with the sun, Patayo or Tayo, as he's called, and asked to be united with Taisani. Taisani sent clouds, and as he sent clouds, the water of the Morobavi, the body of water, began to bubble. And with this bubbling emerged, she was converted into a flower called the tabachi, así se llama, tabachi, la flor.
Tabachín, tabachín.
Tabachin. Tabachin, which is one of the sacred flowers of the Ópata Nation.
Termino rápido con esto. Ella maldijo al malvado que mató a su novio y se convirtió en una piedra porque su corazón era de piedra. Desde entonces el tabachín crece cerca de los ojos de agua y en este caso la piedra está obligada a ver eternamente el amor entre el agua que corre y la flor que la besa cotidianamente.
Wow, okay.
Muy
So
bonito.
I'm going to do my best to translate it. So Tabachi cursed the warrior that had killed Taisani, the child of the sun. And she cursed him by turning him into a stone that remained by the body of water. And the Tabachin the sacred flower of the Ópata always grows close to the water. And I'm going to ask for one clarification because this is the moral and it's important. So, porque el tabachín crece cerca del agua, ¿cuál es la enseñanza ahí? ¿Me puedes decir una vez más?
La permanencia del amor por encima de la maldad.
Ah, okay.
¿No?
The permanence of love trouncing evil is what the tabachín growing close to the water symbolizes.
Yes, but the punishment to the stone is that it must watch it without being able to participate. It watches the beauty of the connection between the flower and the sun.
Thank you. And the stone.
Así?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you. There was a lot to remember.
Thank you so much, Dani. I know how difficult it is to translate.
I do the best.
Gracias, Dani.
Traducí bien, pero
When my husband and I visited Aguascalientes and visited my...
Es una de las leyendas y las historias de Nácori Chico que están en este libro.
En un libro, okay, so it's out of a book of stories about Nácori Chico, which I hope to
Cristina
visit.
wrote, right?
Sorry?
¿Usted escribió
¿Perdón?
ese libro, Cristina? ¿O?
Sí, así es mío.
Yeah.
Igual que
So she wrote that book. Or she-
Satashi, que este es un catálogo de sitios históricos y sitios importantes de la opatería.
So this is another book that I wrote, Satachi,
También
which is a catalog of historical sites, sacred sites of the Opataria.
Great.
Satashi significa tierras coloradas.
Satachi means red lands,
Red Earth, yeah,
red earth. Yes, thank you.
whatever. Don't mind me,
That's a
Danny.
better translation. Red earth, red lands.
Okay. Bueno, here we are, 3 ópatas, and I see Edgar también. Aquí estamos, 3 ópatas.
Cuatro. Sí,
4 con
Cuatro.
Edgar.
Con Edgar.
And what do each of you want to see happen to us, happen for us as a people in the near future?
Entonces, Cristina, ¿qué quieres ver a nuestra gente ópata en el futuro cercano?
Unificada, organizada, con un desarrollo constante, permanente y especialmente hablando nuestra lengua. Y en eso reconozco el trabajo que hace Edgar, que hace Kathleen, Dani y un grupo numeroso de ópatas que trabajamos en diferentes partes. En el municipio de Opodepe tiene 12 comunidades y están trabajando en cada una de ellas. En Zaguaripa, en Aribechi, pues en toda la Sierra Alta, especialmente los cronistas que están haciendo un gran trabajo.
So I want to see, she says, I want to see us unified, organized, reclaiming our culture, speaking our language, recognized both internally and externally. And I want to see the work that we are doing in places like Opodepe and Zaguaripa, chronicling our culture and community and our ways, our epistemologies to continue.
How about you, Danny?
Yeah. So I would echo what Cristina said, but I would also add, I would love to see a tribalography written from the perspective of our people, as opposed to the current documents that exist are important. They're based on archival sources, but they're written by non-native peoples, so there's a lot that is missing in them. So I would love to see iteration of a tribalography written by our people. Entonces dije que quiero ver una historia de Ópata escrita por gente Ópata y no por gente que no indígena. I would love to see the dictionary come to fruition in my lifetime. There's a lot of pieces of it. I'd love to see a dictionary and a grammar that is usable. Me gustaría ver un diccionario y una gramática completa que podemos usar. I would love to see revitalization in a wide variety of areas, including ceremonial revitalization, epistemological revitalization, obviously linguistic. So me gustaría ver la continuación de la revitalización ceremonial de nuestra gente en términos de epistemología o cómo vemos el mundo y lingüístico. And I'd love to see the work for federal and state recognition to continue on both sides of the border. Obviously, the politics looks different on the US side versus the Mexican side. We are recognized by other native nations on the Mexican side, but it would be good to see, you know, state recognition on both sides. Entonces, ser reconocido oficialmente a nivel federal y a nivel del Estado y a nivel de otras naciones indígenas en los dos lados de la frontera. Ya tenemos ese reconocimiento por su trabajo en el lado mexicano, pero también estamos hablando de este lado. And also, yeah, so I guess I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Edgar, since you're here, would you like to
Kathleen,
jump in?
me gustaría agregar nada más que tenemos representación de los ópatas en diferentes ayuntamientos con los regidores y en algunos de ellos incluso con síndico municipal. En el caso de Nácori, el presidente municipal, si no está trabajando directamente por no poder hacerlo, pero sí apoya todo el trabajo que se hace para revitalizar a nuestra gente, a nuestra comunidad.
Okay.
Gracias.
¿Es un regidor, Cristina? ¿Qué quiere decir un regidor?
Perdón. Los cabildos se conforman por un presidente, un síndico y varios regidores que son los que conforman el órgano rector del municipio.
Okay, so she's saying that within Sonora, Ópata people are both recognized and represented in municipal government, in the municipalities of the Ópataria, including places like Opodepe. And within those municipalities, projects of indigenous reclamation are ongoing.
So we just need to get busy on this side of the border, right?
Yes.
Edgar, did you want to add anything?
Hi, buenas tardes, Dani. I will give you the
Hola,
job
Edgar.
translating. So, creo que igual que Dani, haría eco de los comentarios de Cristina. Creo que estamos muy en sintonía, todos nosotros que intentamos utilizar nuestras habilidades o carreras profesionales, porque no todos, nuestra gente, nuestra comunidad, ha llegado a graduarse, ¿no?, del sistema universitario que pueda existir, ya sea en Estados Unidos o en México. Entonces, lo que a mí me interesa e intento empujar, let me know if it's too much, Dani.
Oh, thank you, Edgar. Yeah, that was a good stopping place. So Edgar's talking about, he wants to echo what Cristina said. He's talking about the harmonization that exists in terms of what we're hoping to do on both sides of the border. And he's talking about the importance of using our professional positions, whatever those professional positions are, to support the reclamation efforts of our people.
Yeah. Básicamente, si alguien es bueno en relaciones públicas, si alguien es bueno en política, alguien es bueno en tecnología, sabemos que los tiempos que contamos, si tenemos familias, son muy cortos, pero el poco tiempo que demos como voluntarios, que sea de la mejor forma posible para invertir de esa forma en nuestra comunidad, ¿no? Eventualmente, ya que formemos una base más sólida, el el sistema va caminando un poco mejor, ¿no? Precisamente porque no tenemos suficientes recursos. Todo es con nuestro tiempo libre que tenemos de las responsabilidades de familia, lo que utilizamos, pero creo yo que de aquí a 5 años o menos vamos a lograr bastantes cambios que muchos no esperan.
Great. Thank
que,
you,
yeah,
Edgar.
sorry.
Let Danny translate, and then we have to wrap this up.
Okay, so Edgar is talking about how many of our community members work in politics and technology, and how can we best use these resources that we have, as well as use the limited time that we have to wisely invest that time into our community. Many resources are still needed for these reclamation efforts. And at this point, a lot of the work is being done voluntarily. However, within the next 5 years, Edgar predicts that a lot of the work that didn't seem possible until very recently is going to begin to take shape.
Thank you. And thank all of you for
Gracias.
coming to this. And thank you for jumping in with us, Edgar. It's been a pleasure. Muchas gracias, Isabel Cristina Okimaki y Dani también. Muchas gracias por todo. And that's it for us, Phoebe.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thanks, everyone. It was a wonderful, most educated. I feel like we are going to, this was a classroom of wonderful people. Thanks, Kathleen, for putting this together.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Gracias a Phoebe, a Tom, Kathleen, Dani y Edgar. Un abrazo para todos.
Gracias.
Sí,
Gracias.
muchas gracias. Abrazos.